Hey, what's up guys, Tony here, and we are watching some DC Universe Online, and if you're looking at the title and you're scratching your head like, wait a second, he's going to talk about the Avengers. What the hell is DC Universe Online? Because, I mean, if you've been around the block, the comic book block that is, you know that DC has nothing to do with Marvel, with the exception of the times that they've fought each other in these epic comic book showdowns and stuff. But I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about the Avengers. And the reason why it's DC is because it's a comic book based game, and there's no Marvel Online, you know, Marvel Universe Online. If there was a Marvel Universe Online, I would play the shit out of that game, probably like 3 times more than I do DC, and I play a lot of DC right now. But I digress. Let's talk about the Avengers. Now, I saw the Avengers Sunday, like 11 o'clock. You know, I actually ended up going by myself. That in itself is a very long story, so I'm not going to bother you guys with why I went by myself. But basically it boiled down to drama. I don't know how else to put it. So I went by myself. I saw it in regular theater thing. It's like, quote, analog. You can't see my air quotes now, but suddenly it's just like, you know, when digital cameras came out, film was like, quote, analog, and like, oh, I can't believe you're not shooting digital now, blah, 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 blah. Well, now it's like, I can't believe you didn't see an IMAX. I can't believe you didn't see 3D IMAX. Like, I just saw it in regular-ass cinema, just like on the regular screen, because that's good enough for me. I don't need this, like, mind-bending experience where shit flies out from the screen and I want to, like, touch it, you know, like, ah, god damn it. Get it out of my face, or whatever. That's what she said. And, so anyways, here's something really interesting that I heard on the radio on Monday. The Avengers over the opening weekend grossed over $600 million worldwide, and it's like over $200 million in the country, and it's just like, whoa, that is impressive. I mean, it's gonna be the biggest selling movie of all time. You know, it's gonna gross the most amount of money. And that's really impressive, especially for something that is kind of a niche. You know, it's a comic book adaptation, or a movie about a comic book adaptation. I think I had it right the first time. The adaptation of a comic book. There we go. My English is like totally messed up. I've been trying to work on Spanish shit all day today, so I'm like reversing my grammar. If you guys have ever taken a language, you know what I'm talking about. You're just kind of like, it's like dog like me. Like, what? I like my dog. So anyways, it grossed a shitload of money, but it's one of those things, like I said, it's a niche sort of experience, you know, for the most part. At least when I was growing up, comic books were sort of a nerdy-ass thing. Like, not a lot of people were into comic books, not a lot of people read the books, paid attention to the characters. I mean, they were the iconic characters, Captain America, Spider-Man, X-Men, like Wolverine, you know. These guys are iconic characters that normal people can relate to, you know. Everyone just seems to know who Wolverine is, who Spider-Man, who the Hulk is, Captain America. But when you get into Iron Man, but when you get into other characters like Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, those characters are really the ones that the comic book fans are gonna know those characters. So, but basically, let me tell you guys. I want to tell you guys a couple of things. One thing, I absolutely love the Avengers. It was an experience like no other, and I've been trying to think about like how to intellectualize why it was so good, because if you were to take it like at the movie as is, if you have never seen any of the movies they've been making, like you didn't see Thor, if you didn't see, I didn't see The Incredible Hulk, so that's the one movie that I actually didn't see. If you didn't see Captain America, if you didn't see any of the Iron Man movies, you're gonna kind of walk in this and go like, well, what's going on with some of these characters, you know? And I realized it was at the scene where Thor is talking to Loki, towards like the first third of the movie. That's when I realized, like, holy shit, they did this right. Because if you think about a comic book, every character has his own book. Spider-Man has his own book. I mean, Captain America has his own book. Iron Man's got his own book. Hulk has had his own book. Hawkeye, not really, but Thor's got his own book. I mean, all these characters, they have their own books and they have their own stories. But the great thing is all these characters, even within their own books, they live in the same universe. So sometimes you'll have team-ups, sometimes you'll have crossovers, sometimes you'll have all these things, and the actual universe, the timeline will overlap each other. And that's exactly what they did in the movie. All these movies overlap each other. Now the storyline from the movie is borrowed heavily from Thor, because that's where you get Loki from, the Thor movie. But it has elements of the Iron Man movie as well. And I don't know about the Hulk movie because, like I said, I didn't see it. But basically, and then Captain America obviously comes, but he's displaced in time from his movie. So his storyline isn't quite there, but his character, like his emotion and where he's coming from as a character, if you've seen Captain America, you understand why he is the way he is. So that's what I really liked. I liked the conversation that Thor and Loki had together, because I mean, if you take the movie as is, like you just go into the movie, you've never seen it before, you see Loki and Thor. Loki's the bad guy. He's clearly the bad guy. Thor's clearly a good guy. But they're talking, they're conversing, and it's just like, wait, what? What is going on? You know? And if you didn't see Thor, you won't quite understand. They're like, hey, look, those two are brothers. They were raised together, and just because Loki's the bad guy, that doesn't mean that Thor is going to give up on his brother. And I was like, that's brilliant. That is so brilliant. And then that's why I came up with this whole, it's like a comic book. It's like the comic book. They treated these movies like the comic book world. They developed their own stories, and then they brought them all together for a team up. And another thing that I really love, I just absolutely loved about the movie, is that throughout the Iron Man movie so far, so Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, there is no intellectual equal to Tony Stark. Not one. Even, what's his name? Justin Hammer, I think it is. Hammer of Hammer Industries, the other top defense contractor in the U.S. Tony Stark, always jokes and talks down to Hammer because his quality is shit. He puts out a bad product by comparison to the Stark Industries weapons and stuff. So when Dr. Banner and Tony Stark finally, Tony Hawk, yeah, the skateboarder. So when Tony Stark and Dr. Banner finally get together, there's a slight change in Stark's behavior. He treats Dr. Banner as an intellectual equal and as an equal on every level. And at first I was thrown by that. I was just like, this is so out of character for Stark to be treating him such like an equal. But then you realize, because he talks about his research, and he said that his gamma ray research is unparalleled, and then suddenly you've got two guys who are genius level thinkers, and you've got one guy who's sort of been constantly pursued, pushed off to the side, kept on the fringes of society because he's dangerous, and then you've got Tony Stark on the other hand, who is trying to get this guy to embrace what he's got, the Hulk, and his genius, and what he has to offer. And I found that so fascinating. And then what was also really nice is the relationship that Captain America had with Tony Stark's father in the Captain America movie. It was a very close one. They were friends. They were good friends. And then all of a sudden you kind of expect Tony Stark to have a similar sort of relationship with Steve Rogers, Captain America, but they have a very afraid relationship. There's friction. You've got Tony Stark, he's sort of the rebel, does his own thing, doesn't care what everyone else does, and then you've got Captain America, like the pure hero, he'll be the guy to sacrifice himself for the good of everybody, the mission, whatever. He'll be the one that goes down. He'll sacrifice himself for the mission. And so you've got these two ideologies competing, within the same group, and it was just so, like, the scene on the SHIELD aircraft carrier is so telling. You get so much. You get into every one of those characters' minds. And the movie, it was just great. It was a great experience. The movie itself was action packed. Within the first 5 minutes, you realize, okay, this is a situation that one hero can't take care of. I mean, even when Captain America comes into it and he fights Loki for the first time, you see, like, wow, Captain America is super strong. This is one bad motherfucker, but he's not enough to take down Loki. But with the help of Iron Man, things are a little different. His battle's swayed a little bit. So I guess I'm getting a little spoilers here, so sorry about that. I'm trying not to get too involved, but because I'm talking a lot about the characters, it's kind of hard to disconnect from the movie, because it's sort of, obviously it's a movie, it's a story. These characters are an integral part of this, and the way they behave. So Anyways, I thought that was really interesting. I really just dug the way it was put together. And one thing that I really absolutely loved was how they stayed true to the characters and they didn't buy into this whole, Robert Downey Jr., he's made 2 very successful Iron Man movies, whereas Chris Evans, who plays Captain America, he's made 1 movie. And so you've got this old, established, successful actor, and you've got Chris Evans, who's playing Captain America, who is established, but he doesn't have, Robert Downey Jr. success, But Captain America is the leader of the Avengers, and basically they wrote it and they played it and they did that. They didn't say, well, if there wasn't any sort of ego fighting going on where it's like, well, Robert Downey Jr., he wants more screen time, he wants to lead this thing, there was none of that. They stayed so true to the book. That was fantastic. I mean, it's really cool to see Captain America in charge, Captain America being the one to break up fights, Captain America being the one to give commands, tell people what to do, not in like a bossy way, but he's Captain America, he's the super soldier. He's the guy who leads. He leads people. That's what he does. So that was really cool to see that they actually did that. What was also really interesting to see is with characters that weren't, quote, superheroes, as far as like having super abilities, like with Hawkeye, although I'd consider his accuracy and proficiency with a bow probably superpower. And then Black Widow, although they weren't like, quote, superpowered, what was interesting to see is that they're people and they got tired. Like there's a scene with Black Widow and she's like totally exhausted from fighting all these aliens. Captain America happens to come over and she's just exhausted. You're just like, wow, I can relate to that character because she could be any one of us. We could be her, fighting this battle that you really doesn't seem like you can win, but you're fighting anyways. But instead of people like Ramboing it up, going through the whole thing, and being basically invincible and doing whatever you want to do and exploiting whatever abilities you have without ever getting tired, that's amazing. I thought it was cool to bring in that sort of human physicality to these roles. Even Captain America, he displays some of the he can do a lot of stuff, but he can't do everything. Gosh, and here's the thing. This is what it boils down to, is the fact that it's a Marvel Studios movie, made by Marvel, obviously, made by the company that created the books. So they're able to tell these stories how they want to tell them, in the timetable they want to tell them. So I put tweets out there this week. I was just like, well, who needs major movie studios when you've got Marvel Studios around to make these superhero movies? Now, what I meant by that is not like, Marvel Studios is an independent studio, blah, blah, blah. It's just that who needs an outside body to make superhero movies when you could have the actual company that created the superheroes make the movies? That right there is the best thing. They do the best, because you look at the history of these movies right now. You look at Spider-Man. I thought Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 were really good. Spider-Man 3 pretty much sucked donkey balls, and I love Spider-Man, and I don't necessarily hate the movie, but it's just like, okay, whatever. Spider-Man 2, like I said, was awesome. You got the Ghost Rider movies, I actually liked the Hulk movie. I saw the first one with Eric Bana. I actually liked that one. It's not terrible, but they didn't really elaborate. Well, what can you do with this guy who walks around and angry and breaks shit? So they really didn't get involved in that. The Daredevil movie, I actually liked the Daredevil movie again. I mean, there are certain things, like the acting might not be that great, but I like Ben Affleck as Matt Murdock. I really did. And some people are going to be like, no, how could you like the Daredevil movie? Like, I just do. I mean, the things they did with like his radar, how he could see, there are things that they did, and I thought they did really well. So being a comic book guy, there are aspects of almost every movie, minus the Ghost Rider movie, that I thought were really good. It was nice to see. So it's nice to see. Basically what it boils down to, it is nice to see the company that owns the intellectual rights take control of their characters, tell a story they want to tell, in a way that's easy for a movie audience to understand, because not everyone is going to be a huge comic book nerd like myself and just be like, oh my god. So the next thing I'd like to see is take over Spider-Man and the X-Men and redo that, because I think, especially with like the mid-90s relaunch of the X-Men, I think they could do a lot with that cast of characters. Now, that's the thing, is like I thought X-Men First Class was pretty good. There were some holes in it when it comes to, you know, continuity with the other movies and stuff, with like showing Charles Xavier walking and stuff. I mean, the little things, nitpicking things, but yeah. Anyway, so there are some of those little issues and whatever, but you could do it with the X-Men. The last thing that I got into kind of a debate about with a friend of mine is this whole idea that I was basically saying, you know what, good job, Marvel, job well done, you guys are the bomb. And this guy was like, hey, well, by Marvel you mean Disney? And I was like, no, by Marvel I mean Marvel. Just because Disney owns Marvel doesn't mean that they can take 100% credit for the success of the movies. And his argument was like, well, hey, look, they're paying for the movies. They are writing and signing those checks that Marvel is cashing to make these movies. I'm like, yeah, okay, but just because Disney writes the checks doesn't mean they take all the credit. Because my buddy, this guy I'm talking about, he's a filmmaker. And I was like, well, look, if I wrote you a $100,000 check to make a movie and it gets good ratings and good reviews, are people going to be like, well, is this studio, Daniel, this guy's name's Daniel, is it Daniel make great movies? Or is it does it YNOTtheTIGER LLC, who paid for it, do they make great movies? You know, does it have to do with the director and the writer and the studio? Or is it the person who fronted the money? And that's basically my point. It's like, it has to do with the people who actually made the movie, not the people who signed the check. So basically we came down to this, that, you know what, hey, it's the same team. It's all the same team. So we're kind of nitpicking here about whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, I get that, you know, but I want to give credit to the company that has been writing these stories for 70 plus years, because I know damn well that Disney's not in there going, well, you know what you're doing with the Spider-Man book, we don't like it, you know, we want you to do something different. They're not doing that because that's not their job. They just happen to be making a profit off of Marvel, and they've kept Marvel alive. And shit, they're making a ton of money from all these movies that are out now. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna let Marvel do whatever Marvel wants to do, because they've been putting out an excellent product. So that's pretty much all I have, man. It's actually a longer commentary than I thought it was gonna be, but there was a lot to talk about. I really enjoyed the Avengers. I am looking forward to the Spider-Man movie, especially with the things that I've seen in the trailer. I don't like the costume at all. I absolutely hate the costume, but whatever, I can get over that. It's just a costume. But I like where they're going. I think it's sort of in that direction that Marvel would have taken if they would have had, like, Columbia's doing it now, which I think Fox was doing before. I think Columbia is like, okay, this is how Marvel probably would have done it, so let's do it that way. And then, of course, Batman. The last thing I want to say is, as a comic book fan, I've got room in my heart for all the movies, all the superhero movies in the world, and I'm not going to be that guy who's like, well, Batman Begins is going to, or Batman Dark Knight Rises is going to be a way better movie, blah, 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 you know? No, there's room in my heart for all these movies. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Is one movie going to be better than another? I don't know, and I really don't care, because they're totally different universes, they're totally different styles of storytelling, and each one has their own place in the world. So anyways, guys, let me know, did you guys see the Avengers? If you did, how'd you like it? And let me know what other movies you guys are looking forward to seeing as far as superhero movies are concerned. Alright guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll talk to you later.